Good day, folks. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today we have with us Reham Fawad. Came interestingly in 1994, so has a lot of history here in Canada. Currently pursuing in the domain of product management. So we'll get to hear about her story. So let's get started. So Reham, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself as to how you landed where you are right now, the whole story.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, Sad. I will start with the most obvious and then I'll go into history. I think the most obvious thing about me is, I'm probably one of the very, very, very few hijabi product leaders that you'll find in the North American SaaS tech space, for which obviously I'm very thankful for. But life for me started actually in Abu Dhabi, UAE, which is where I was born. I did my elementary years. Although my roots are Pakistani, I've never really lived in the country. I immigrated to Canada, like Sad, you said, in 94. So don't do the calculation, people. But when I
You
started,
were 5 years old at the time. Let's just say, I'm just kidding.
exactly. So when I started high school, I immigrated to Canada on the West Coast in the Vancouver area. I did all of my schooling in Canada. I graduated from University of British Columbia with a software engineering undergrad. But really, my entire career has been in product management since then. So I have a decade of experience in product management on the West Coast in Canada, and then I have almost a decade at this point working on the East Coast in the Toronto area. And I got into product again back in 2006, pretty fresh out of university. So I've seen the profession, the novelty of it, just the way it is done evolve quite a bit in those years. I worked on 0 to 1 products, growth products, mature products, you name it. I worked across several industries, FinTech, GRC, and risk tech, retail and e-commerce, health tech, and more recently, EdTech. I've been leading global products really across Fortune 50 companies and high growth orgs. That is really where my sweet spot is for about 2 decades. And I am also the co-founder of a Canadian registered nonprofit community for Muslim women in product that's called MVP, because I got to channel all my passion about product management and women and underrepresentation and DI and all of that somewhere. And so that's sort of my side hustle.
Amazing, amazing. This is really nice to hear. So, in terms of, and you talked about product management, so it's an interesting field in itself, as you would experience, and you have already experienced it. So, what for the viewers who are out there, what is one day in the life of a product manager? Like, what happens when you wake up in the morning to the time that you go to sleep, if you go to sleep, that is. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I will tell you what one day in the life for me is currently. Um, Knowing well that my role currently is sort of senior leadership, so it's different from what sort of individual contributors would be, but we can get into that. So the day starts, honestly, personally, my life looks like any other working mom out there, right? Carrying the sort of immense privilege and responsibility of raising 2 little humans on my end. Professionally, I'm a director of product, and I actually lead a team of product managers, product marketing managers, and product designers. So my work day has several aspects to it. It's split into building our product portfolio strategy and the roadmap for hypergrowth. There's another aspect where it's all about managing our portfolio's P&L, so profit and loss for profitability. Then there's an aspect of bringing in, I call it product operational excellence for hyperscale. And this really includes the whole execution piece of product managing. So that's what the individual contributor PMs are more familiar with. And also product ops, which is a fairly new thing in the last few years. A big part of what I do is mentor and grow my teams, and really sort of aiming for world-class product management practices. So I do that a lot as well. To say a day is meetingless would be quite the joke. In fact, gone are the times where I had one consecutive meeting, one after the other. Like nowadays, it's just like I'm quadruple booked consecutive one after the other. I'm just like randomly picking which one to go to. But you get the
yeah.
gist. Towards the evening, my side hustle keeps me a bit too busy. Probably that's self-inflicted, but it's a thing I'm passionate about for MVP my community. So a part of my day towards the evening is also spent sort of collaborating with my board of advisors, which is a bunch of Muslim women doing really well in product management in North America. Just trying to figure out how we can connect and empower more Muslim women to shape the products of tomorrow. And again, I'll say it again, and I think that you've heard me say this a couple of times. The product Soch meetups is, I'm really a deep believer of fostering diversity and inclusion, and really empowerment and awareness within the product management for underrepresented groups, which is where obviously a lot of immigrants come from.
Absolutely. Now, by the way, you mentioned a point about raising kids, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that as well. So, as a mother, balancing careers, and not to suggest that fathers are not supposed to take care of kids as well, but mothers, of course, have a more deeper connection, and that's just the way it is, so to speak. So, how do you manage all of that in your schedule? How does it all go about?
Yeah, it is not easy for sure, Saad. And I think my first couple of years I struggled because product management is the kind of discipline that demands full time, right? Like you can't be a part-time product management or consulting. Yes, you can do, but then I think it's hard to pay bills, right? So it has been hard for sure. I definitely suggest you need to get help, whether that's someone that cleans your house once every few weeks or, some help with cooking. Maybe you sort of have those like tiffin services or whatever.
Yeah,
I think it's important for you to have childcare for your kids because, kids are a handful, especially when they're younger. So there's all of that. But what I will say is it's doable. If you are determined, it is doable. And I think that is definitely a big reason I think why I don't see a lot of women in product. And actually there was a survey that was done by Lean In, which is a pretty famous org that said spouses, out of spouses, the wife does at least 35% more of the kid
wow,
caretaking and house caretaking than their male partners do, which is true. And I think that's just the nature of our gender, which is fine. It's doable, but you need help. You can
absolutely. Makes sense. Makes
yeah.
sense. One last question for you, Reham. Uh, eh, though you came in pretty early to the country, so you didn't go through that all immigration cycle, but you've still seen a lot of journeys, I'm sure, in your life. For
Yeah.
those who are coming into the field new or planning to come and with all of this AI evolving, what is your advice for those individuals who are coming out of universities or moving into the country?
Yeah, absolutely. Sad, I'm actually going to give a few advices because I've been thinking about this honestly a lot as I've been more involved with communities this year in the last couple of years. First one I will give is, accept that culture shock is part of the process, right? Like empathize with yourself as you settle in and find people that are going through the same thing. Let me tell you, I without a doubt, I can bet my life on that every single person that immigrates to Canada goes through the same issue of loneliness, culture shock, job sort of titles are different, pay cuts, all of that stuff, right? So empathize with yourself and know that culture shock is going to be part of the process. So be prepared for it. Second one for product managers in particular is, really understand how product management works in North America before you're applying to jobs. There are definitely nuances and differences you need to adjust your resume to, your LinkedIn to, your interview answers to, right? So for example, again, as part of my community, like I was talking to a product manager that is a PM here for a few years, but used to be in Africa. And I was like, tell me, how is product management different in Africa, right? So in Africa, it's more about product ownership, so more about the execution piece. Whereas in North America, you're expected to own the roadmap and the KPIs and all of that. So study up on that. I would really, really suggest being part of local product communities, taking the time to just get to know people. And don't go because you want a job at these sort of community meetups. Go because you want to learn what the nuances are in the space. I would really suggest taking courses by North American product schools to upskill yourself and just, overall be relentless in your pursuit of product knowledge. Even if you're a senior, even if you think you get it, learning is a lifelong journey, right?
Absolutely. No,
Um,
that's a lifelong journey for sure. Yeah, you wanted to say something else?
I wanted to say one more thing was that, aim to get your foot in the door first. And even if it means taking a step back, because a lot of times for a lot of immigrants, it does, right? So not a step back in the sense like I'm a doctor, I'm going to drive a taxi. I know a lot of people do that. So not in that sense, but in the sense that I used to be a principal PM. Okay, now I'm going to be an associate PM, right? Like
In the
be
same vertical, so to speak.
in
Yeah.
the same vertical, just a couple of
Yeah.
steps back. And I think
Yeah.
that'll help. Um,
Absolutely.
I do want to add a last one, Saad, if you don't
No, no,
mind.
absolutely. Please.
Again, it's my experience, and my experience is very different because I came as a kid, but I actually think it has nothing to do with pursuing a product career in Canada, but in my opinion, it is probably one of the most crucial advice I typically give unprompted to immigrant families, especially like mothers, working mothers, is, if you're a professional that just immigrated to Canada and you have a kid that is in grade 8 or grade 9, so a kid that started going to high school, check in with them, make sure they're doing okay. Bullying, especially when you immigrate here, is very real in school. It is very real in the boardroom. It is very real everywhere. And so keep tabs on your kids, because your kid is not going to come home and tell you that they're being bullied, but they most probably 80%, unfortunately, of the chances are that they are being. So I do want to add that. I honestly tell most of the people that it's very unfortunate, but I think if you stay on top of it when you move with your kids, it's easier to sort of undo it for them.
Thank you so much, Reham, for your time today. I think with the sea of knowledge that you have on the subject of product management, it would absolutely make sense to have a professional class with you. So we'll try to set up something like a dedicated half hour, 1 hour session with you, and you can actually walk the people who watch out the videos to get a better understanding. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we'll connect soon again.
Yeah, thank you, Saad. Thank you for hosting these sessions to, empower immigrants with stories of progression, really from people that have been in their shoes, because I think that's very important. Again, they're not alone. A lot of people have gone through this before them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
No problem.